Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Thursday. I hope the day's going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I really do appreciate it. We are, of course, heading towards the weekend now on the first international break of the season. Oh, how are we at an international break already? Honestly, every year, this one, of all the international breaks, this one just feels the same every year. Just that frustration of we're just getting into the season and then bang, 2 weeks off for the international, but it is what it is. We are used to it by now, and there's plenty more to come between now and Christmas, so we're going to have to get used to it. Again, Arsenal players will be in action with their national teams, fingers crossed, as always at this stage, that everyone comes back unscathed. I think we've all had enough of injuries already this season, and we're only a few weeks into it. So we've got plenty to talk about today anyway. You're going to look at what Jakub Kiwior has been saying, having left Arsenal. Christian Mosquera has been speaking as well. We'll talk about him, some interesting stuff there about kind of not really to Arsenal fans, but to Valencia fans about his move and how it happened and how he thinks about it. Mosquera, obviously, a really fantastic debut in the Premier League against Liverpool before the international break. Really, really encouraged by what's seen from him so far. So we'll go over what he's had to say. Got a couple of questions and comments from you guys as well. But I wanted to start. I've had lots of questions. Now, obviously, I wasn't around yesterday. We put out Inside Arsenal Extra Time, and myself and James, we were assessing the transfer window as a whole and Andrea Berta's work. So I wasn't around to do my usual show yesterday because it was the final day of the school holidays for me. Anyway, my kids went back to school this morning. Can you hear that? Silence. Glorious silence. The kids are back at school. I love my kids. Of course I love my kids, but I tell you what, and everyone watching who's a parent will understand this. The feeling, the first day after the summer holidays, being able to send them back to school and come back and walk into a quiet house for the first time. Oh, it's nothing like it. Nothing like it. I do love my kids, though, honestly. But anyway, I took them to Chessington yesterday for the final day before they went back to school. Chester World Adventures, which for those overseas who don't know is a theme park over here. So I couldn't do my usual show. So I wasn't able to speak about this Champions League squad that has been submitted. I've had loads of questions and comments on the Discord, on YouTube, on my social media, on X and everything like that about the squad that has been submitted by Arsenal and the sort of the glaring omission. And if you see this, these are the players that Arsenal included on their A list. And there's a couple of really sort of interesting bits here. So the goalkeepers, Raya, Kepa and Tommy Setford. Defenders, Saliba, Mosquera, White, Hincapié, Gabriel, Timber, Calafiori. Midfielders, interesting, Havertz is listed as a midfielder here. Odegaard, Eze, Norgard, Trossard, Madueke, Marino, Havertz, Zubimendi, Rice and Dowman. The forwards, Saka, Martinelli and Gyökeres. So that's the list that Arsenal put on their website for the squad. So there's two sort of big things there. Obviously, Max Dowman is in the A list, which is interesting. If he appears in this league phase, he'll be the youngest player ever to play in a Champions League game. And I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. But the big thing before we get on to Dowman is the absence of Gabriel Jesus. And that's what I've had so many questions and comments about, people getting in touch. And why is Jesus not in the squad? And I have to say, I was immediately surprised. I was looking at it, it's like, why is Jesus not in that squad? Yes, he's injured at the moment, but we've seen he's really stepping up his recovery at the moment. He's working really hard at Colney. He's out on the pitch again. He's twisting, he's turning. He's putting a lot of, he's putting a lot of pressure on that knee. He's working with the ball. Obviously, he's not doing anything with the squad. Yeah, he's still what you'd say probably from an untrained eye, an injury like this, still got 2 months away from coming back, something like that. But the final league game, or the final game in this league phase, is the end of January. And there's 8 games, of course. So you'd think he's well on course to be back by then. So he could at least play a few games. So I was immediately surprised. Like, why is Jesus not in that squad? And lots of you are the same because of the messages I've been getting and the questions I've been getting. Now, the way that squad is made up is you can have a 25-man squad, but you've got to have 8 homegrown. 4 of those have got to be sort of club homegrown, and 4 of them can be nation homegrown. And there's things they have to, they've got to have played in this nation, I think, for 3 years, something like that. Well, Madueke is not in it because he played between 15 and 21. He spent his time, or most of his time, playing in Holland, so he doesn't qualify to be homegrown status in the Champions League under UEFA rules. He does in the Premier League, but not under UEFA rules, so he can't go down as a homegrown player. So Arsenal have 7 here homegrown included. I think it's 3 club homegrown and 4 the sort of nation homegrown. And because of that, it means they can only submit a 24-man squad rather than 25. If they had 8, they could submit a 25-man squad. So they've only included 20. They've only submitted a 24-man squad. But here they have 23. So there is space for Gabriel Jesus. He could have been included, but he wasn't. And it just feels really, really strange and odd. And it was immediately sprung out to me, and it sprung out to lots of other people. I can't give a definitive reason why he hasn't, although having spoken to people about it, I'm absolutely assured, because immediately my mind goes to conspiracy theories and other people's mind goes to conspiracy theories. Like, what does this mean? He's leaving? Are Arsenal about to sell him or loan him? And that's why they didn't bother including him? Or people said, and I thought it as well, I was like, has there been a setback that we don't know about yet that hasn't emerged? Has he injured his knee again? Is he definitely not going to be available until the end of January? Is that why they haven't included him? So immediately your mind goes to those conspiracy theories. But I'm told absolutely that is not the case. He is on his way back. He should be back by the end of the league phase. But Arsenal just didn't want to rush it. And if he could be back with like 2 or 3 games to go, would he be fit really? You know, he'd be back available, but really, really be fit to be able to start and make an impact in the Champions League. I'm just told that they just decided he's not. We don't want to rush him. We don't want to put any undue pressure on him. And as long as he's, you know, he'll be included when the knockout squads are submitted. And so there is, as far as I'm aware, there's no conspiracy theory. All the conspiracy theory stuff is just not correct. And it is just purely that Arsenal decided that they didn't want to rush in. They didn't want any pressure on him. They know he's not going to be available for the first sort of half of the league phase games. And so they just felt it wasn't really much point putting him on. It's as simple as that, as far as I've been told anyway. So, but I do find it quite odd. I thought, it's like, why on earth? What's the point? Because even if they were going to sell him or loan him out, you know, there's been lots of talk about loaning back to Brazil, but their window's shut at the same time as ours, so he can't go back to Brazil on loan. But even if you were going to do that, and there was something in the process of potentially a transfer happening some point down the line, it doesn't make sense not to include him in the squad because of that. Because if the transfer doesn't work out, if it collapses and doesn't go through, you'd still have him on the squad and still be able to use him. So, and he's got such a good record in Europe. You kind of felt like if he's there, you want to play him, but have him involved. But obviously, Arsenal decided otherwise, and he's not in the squad. But I am told, for all the questions about what it means and everything like that, I'm told there is nothing in all the conspiracy theories, and it's just purely that they didn't want to rush him. They don't believe he's going to be back for sort of half the games, and they didn't feel it was much point putting him in the squad for the rest of it. So that is what it is. On Max Dowman, obviously that's really, really interesting that Dowman's in the squad. He can't be, all the other players can be in the B. This is mad because there's the B squad as well. And like you'll see in that squad, there's no Ranieri, there's no Miles Skelly, but they don't need to be in the A squad because of their age at the moment. They can be in the B squad and they can all get, that has to be submitted by like midnight the day before the game, players under 21, all that sort of stuff, and they can be involved. So Arsenal didn't have to include those two, but they had to include Miles because to be involved in that B squad, I think you had to play for 2 years or something after the age of 15 to be able to be in that B squad. And Max is so young that he doesn't even qualify to be in the B squad, so they've had to include him in the A squad. And there's no age restriction in UEFA in terms of who can play. As long as he's registered on the A list. So Max is eligible to play. And if he does play in any of these games, he's going to be the youngest player to play ever in the Champions League, which will be a remarkable record for him to have. And yeah, just kind of sums up how crazy everything that's happening to Max Dowman is. You know, you think of the Champions League, the history behind it, the amazing players that have played in it, the amazing young players who have played in it. And, you know, Dowman is on the verge of beating them all to be the youngest ever player in the Champions League. It's just remarkable. And it's just kind of funny that he's so young that he can't even be in the B squad. So that's the latest on the Champions League squad anyway, which has now been submitted. Arsenal's first game, not too far away now, away at Athletic Club Bilbao, not too far away. Right, I'm just going to bring up some quotes here. Jakub Kiwior has been speaking about his move. This was really interesting. I think this kind of shines a little bit of a light on the last few days of the transfer window and what's kind of going through players' heads as well with everything that is going on. He was speaking over in Portugal following his move to Porto, and he was asked about his move to Arsenal, a move from Arsenal. And I just thought this was really interesting. So what he had to say, he said, "It was difficult to say goodbye to Arsenal because I didn't know when it would actually happen. If I'd known the exact day in advance, I would have had time to prepare, to process. But in the last 3 days there, I didn't know which would truly be my last." Fabrizio Romano announced, "Here we go," and I started receiving dozens of messages and calls congratulating me. But I was starting training, and the Arsenal players saw it on their phones, and they asked me, why are you putting your kit on if it's already closed? But I refused to say my goodbyes there because I still didn't have the information about what might happen and what might not happen. The next day when I returned, already I knew that I could say goodbye. I went onto the pitch to say goodbye to my teammates and to the coach. They set up a farewell tunnel. It was tough. I didn't have everyone there that I wanted to say goodbye to, so I still had to make some phone calls. I just think that was really interesting, that sort of behind the scenes stuff in terms of what's going on. If you're a player, you know there's a transfer sort of happening, but you're out of the loop, really. So you still got to go out there. You still got to train with your current team, even though you know you're probably going to move. You don't know when you're going to get that phone call saying, right, it's done. We can go. We've got to go to the airport. We've got to get on the plane. So he's trying to carry on training. He's getting messages on his phone. Fabrizio's done the here we go and everything like that, but he's still pulling on his boots and wearing his Arsenal training kit and walking out to have a training session with Arsenal. And he doesn't know whether he should be saying goodbye to his teammates or not. I just thought it was really interesting behind the scenes stuff. And I thought it was really nice when he says he came back in the next day. He knew at that point that it was all done, but he came back in for his final day. He went and said goodbye to the players, to Arteta. They all did that sort of the tunnel type thing that he runs through, that sometimes new signings get, or in players who've come back from injuries get when they come out on the training pitch. So he had that done. I thought that was a nice touch. And I think it kind of says a lot about how Kiwior is viewed and the popularity that he has in and around the squad with the coaching staff and everyone like that. It's one of those transfers that, as much as I felt like Arsenal could have got more from in terms of transfer fee, I definitely feel like it was a good deal for Porto, not so much for Arsenal. But it was one of those ones that you kind of just really hope works out. You know, Arsenal got some okay money for him, could have been better. Porto have got him at a pretty good price, but for Kiwior, you know, he's gone with his head held high. He's gone as a very popular figure with his teammates, with the fans, and you know, if he ever comes back with Porto, which you would imagine there's a good chance of that happening, because you know, Porto are always in European football, then he will be one of those former players who comes back and gets a very, very good reception from the Arsenal fans. So yeah, I thought there was some interesting stuff from him. Christian Mosquera has been speaking as well, not so much about Arsenal, but he's obviously away with Spain now, the under-21s, on international duty during the international break, and he's given an interview about his departure from Valencia, which was a bit of a controversial one from their side of things. You know, he's a homegrown player, really, really exceptional young talent, as we saw with the way he performed when he came on at Liverpool before the international break. But he left with a year to go, not a particularly massive fee for someone so talented as well. And Valencia, when they announced the signing, announced a deal, you know, made it very, very clear that Mosquera had unequivocally asked to leave, which is why they had to accept Arsenal's offer, and that caused a bit of a stir with the Valencia fan base and everything like that. So he's been addressing that a little bit in this interview, and this is what he had to say. Right, he said, obviously, when you leave what has been your home, you would like things to be a little different, both the statement and the things that have come out. By that statement, he means what Valencia said about him leaving. He said, I'll never speak ill of Valencia because I'm a Valencia fan and it is a club that has given me everything. I would have liked it to have been a little bit different, but sometimes in football, you have to look out for yourself, and there will be some who understand that and others who don't. I'm at peace because whenever I wore the Valencia shirt, I gave it my all. When he was asked if he had a message for the Valencia fans, he says, I understand that it's a bit complicated for them, that they want the home players to stay at home, but football is just not like that. Valencia is the club that has given me the opportunity to be a footballer, and I'll always be grateful. And to the fans too, because they always gave me incredible support. I'm just another Valencia fan, and I ask them to understand. It's quite tough, isn't it? You know, if you're this sort of shoe was on the other foot and that was happening to an Arsenal player, you can understand the feeling of almost resentment from Arsenal fans. If like, I don't know, in one area, or Miles Lewis-Skelly sort of ran down his deal to the final year and then left at a relatively young age, pushed for a move to another club, you could understand you'd feel pretty resentful about that and bitter about that, wouldn't you? So you can understand the position that Valencia fans are in, but then you can also look at it from a Mosquera point of view and think, you know, how often do you get an opportunity to move to a club like Arsenal? And if that opportunity is there, then you've got to kind of push for it and to take it as well. And from an Arsenal point of view, it looks like a fantastic signing. I mean, that in that pod that me and James did the other day when we were looking at the transfer window as a whole and assessing the signings, I gave Mosquera a grade A signing. I just think it's of all the signings of the summer, I honestly think we could look back at that one. Value for money, what he could end up giving, I think it's a fabulous piece of business. I really do. He looks the part already. And I know it's early days. We've got a very small sample size to go on, but he looks the part. He's got everything that suggests he could be a real weapon in the English league, in the Premier League. He's so young. It was such a relatively cheap deal to do in modern terms as well. I think we could look back on that. It'd be a fantastic piece of business in the long term. Whether that means he forces his way into the Arsenal side and becomes an absolute, part of the furniture here over the next few years, fantastic. But even if he doesn't, and you end up sort of selling him a few years down the line, it looks like one of those pieces of business where you can really generate some good income compared to how much money you spent on him as well. So really interesting signing, really good signing. I thought that was quite interesting comments from him about his departure as well. Right, let's move on to some questions and comments now, shall we? We've got here one from Parish, who says, which signing do you think is going to have the most impact, Eze or Gyökeres? Like a fit Havertz would have given us almost 20 goals last season. If Gyökeres gives us 25, that's 5 more. Fit Saka gives us 15 plus goals and assists. Eze could give us the same. If he does, could Eze be the key difference? I know each player can have other non-binary impacts, but numbers do win games. Which signing do I think will have the biggest impact? Eze or Gyökeres? Oh, that's a tough one. I want them both to have massive impacts. If they do, then Arsenal are going to be in a very good position at the end of the season. And I think they both will have massive impacts. I really, really do. Who will have the biggest? Oh, it's a tough one to predict, Parish. I will go right now. Eze will have the bigger impact because I think Eze is going to become an absolute feature in this team. I think he'll be a guaranteed starter. I think he's going to force his way in. I think he'll be on the left side of the attack. I think when Havertz is fit, I think Havertz is going to play a lot of games. I think Gyökeres will play a lot of games. I think he'll have a big impact. I think he'll score a lot of goals, but I think Havertz will play a lot of games as well. I think Eze could be a bit of an absolute game changer in this team. The way he plays, what he brings, the different sort of style that he can bring. I think he can open teams up, which is something Arsenal have struggled with at times. So I would say Eze, but look, I think both are going to have big impacts, really big impacts. And I'm really looking forward to what Gyökeres is going to do. I know he's had a lot of criticism after the Liverpool game, just like he did after the United game, but it was a tough game for a striker up there. Do I want to see him do more? I said that in that show with James yesterday. I do want to see him do more as he sort of continues to adjust and adapt. I want to see him become more of a nuisance in the box. I don't just want to see him pigeonholed as a striker who runs the channels and can score goals from getting in and isolating a fullback and cut inside like we see against Leeds. I want to see him in and around the 6-yard box scoring goals as well. And I think that's going to be a crucial part of his development over the year as he continues to adjust and adapt and settle into life at Arsenal. And I do think he's going to have a big impact. I think he'll score a lot of goals. But I will say Eze, if I'm predicting that. Now, there's one from James here. He says, afternoon, gents. This is in reply to myself and James in extra time. In terms of future sales, what are your thoughts on Odegaard's longer-term future? Let's be honest, he stunk it out last season and hasn't started this one much better. So depending on how long is left on his contract, not sure how long it is when he signed permanently, is there an argument to move him on, both to generate good funds, but also create a clear pathway for some of the younger players? No, I don't think so. I think that's pretty harsh saying he stunk the place out already. Last season, he had a tough season, but there was definitely context behind that, James. I think you've got to include the context there for his struggles last season. Could he have done better? Absolutely. He admitted that himself, but I do think he was up against it last season, considering the injuries and that he had, others had that were around him. And I thought he started the season okay. I thought he was good at Manchester United. I thought he played not really well, but I thought he played well at Manchester United. Injured in the first half against Leeds, could do nothing there, and then could only come on late on against Liverpool because of that injury. So I think it's pretty hard to sort of label how he started this season. Is there an argument to move him on? I don't think so yet. Look, if he has a really poor season this season, then maybe that argument will be stronger. No doubt about that. I want to see a big season from Odegaard. I think he needs to have a big season. Absolutely. He's the captain. He's Arsenal's sort of chief playmaker and creator, and the guy drives everyone on. So he needs to have a good season. No doubt about that. And if he doesn't, if he really, really struggles, if his place in the team comes under question because of that, then yeah, decisions got to be made. I've said it. I think some tough decisions will have to be made next summer when it comes to selling players. I think some players that we consider really important players at Arsenal, key players, could well go, one or two, because I think some funds are going to need it to be generated. And Arsenal might have to make some big decisions. But that happens at big teams. Sometimes you move players on, you trade players, you generate funds. They're not always players that fans want to see move on. So I think a lot depends on how he plays. But yeah, for me, it's too early really to think about that. I absolutely want Odegaard to have a great season and be a really important part of this squad for the next 2-3 years. So we'll see what happens. Ask me again at the end of the season, James, I reckon. And that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it as always. Do have a very good Thursday. I'll be back in the morning to do it all over again. Inside Arsenal Patreon members, keep a lookout later on today. The Arsenal Press Pass is being recorded, so that'll be coming out on your feeds a little bit later on today. Till then, speak to you soon, everyone. Have a good one. Bye-bye.